All right, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. Now, we haven't talked about it in a while. In the Sean Combs Diddy docket, yesterday, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed its response to his motion to dismiss Count 3 as racist. It's the Mann Act, the Trafficking, White Slavery Act. That's how it used to be called. Maureen Comey for the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a opposition to the motion to dismiss, saying that he has only himself to blame. So we wrote that, and you can find it on Inner City Press and on Patreon. Eric Adams, the beat moves south. He was in D.C. yesterday, although he didn't yet speak to Congress. I think he wanted to get out of town for the Adrian Adams State of the City, which we covered. But he'll be speaking today, quite shortly, in front of the Oversight Committee about sanctuary cities. So we'll be covering that, and then at 12:15, hope to be live tweeting, live Xing, skeeting, the hearing on NYC versus Trump. This is about the clawing back of money from the bank account that the Trump administration says was against an executive order spent on hotels for migrants, and the city says it was for work already done. Of course, the Roosevelt Hotel was owned by the government of Pakistan, it seems. Pakistan actually shouted out for praise for turning over, they say, one of the people behind the attack as the U.S. left Afghanistan. So all of these things come together. We'll get to the UN at the end of this, but there are other cases that we're covering. The Javis trial. Yesterday, her lawyer, Mr. Sullivan, said they have to be able to cross-examine on their big theory, which is that it's not that Chase thought it was going to get this great value in paying $175 million. It was just a defensive play. It was just to keep Frank from being swallowed up by B of A, their big competitor, or as it turned out, Capital One. Speaking of which, on Capital One, we've put up more than 1,000 pages of a FOIA response that we received. Inner City Press, basically a year ago, submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the Federal Reserve Board about its discussions with the banks prior to the deal being announced publicly. Now, they should have actually provided more than 1,000 pages because they cut off the response on the date of the request, even though they took a year to respond to it. But they did provide, a year later, a bunch of documents. This is one thing you can say about FOIA. It's can't often get the documents as quickly as you'd like, but it's worth staying on top, appealing constructive denials. We've put it all on Document Cloud, and people can pore over it. It basically shows incredible inappropriate access by Wachtell Lipton, the bank for Capital One, and directly to Fed senior staff, pretty much, I don't want to say pre-approving because it's taken a year, but making ex parte presentations about the merger. So you can draw your own conclusions about the Federal Reserve, but we put it up under FOIA. That's journalism. Speaking of journalism, even as the UN bans us, despite these journalistic endeavors, or because of them, we've reported a few responses from inside the United Nations. Not only a new scoop today on the ITU, but a memo inside UN Department of Peacekeeping in which it turns out that in response to a real need for auditing the UN, they're trying to stave it off by closing down their 42nd Street entrance. Maybe it's an interesting idea. Maybe it'll keep the auditors out. Who knows? They're closing that down. They're also saying that 10% less words in their reports. I don't think this is going to be enough saving, frankly. Volker Turk is doing the same in Geneva. The UN is in desperate need of a full audit of censorship, and we'll see if it happens. Going in, Inner City Press.